Hi you guys, and welcome back to the Tuition Centre podcast. So today we're here again with our maths expert, Eoghan O'Leary, and today we're going to be talking to you about the exam. So the maths exams, the maths papers. We're going to talk to you about if you're feeling stressed out, if you're feeling nervous, don't be worrying, it's completely normal. And we're going to talk about how to approach the exam. When you sit down and you open up that paper, what do you do? Eoghan, you're very welcome right here. So first of all, we'll start off, I suppose, we're getting to the time of year now, students are going to be getting very nervous, and the reality of the situation is settling in, and I know myself, around this time, I started getting a bit of a pit in my stomach, and it's just one that just never goes away, I think, until the end of June when the exams are finished. So how would you advise, let's say maybe I'm one of your students and I come to you about this, how would you advise dealing with that kind of stress or those nerves? Like, obviously they're completely natural, but yeah.
And I suppose that's one thing that students, because they're experiencing it for the first time, because people do the Leaving Cert once mostly, do you know what I mean, unless they repeat it, but the vast majority of people do it once, and there's no way of really being ready for it, and it kind of just happens organically and reacting to other people and so on, so it kind of creeps up on the students, so they can think it's just them. But I'll have a lesson here now later on today, and you can see on the faces of the students from around now to the exam, you can see the stress, you know? And that's the first thing, to try and, I suppose, let people know that, it's not just them. It's very common, you know? And to a certain extent, it's you want some stress. If a person...
if you're not stressed, you should be worried.
As a teacher, you'd be a little bit worried about the student who isn't stressing, because it might come on right at the end. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is, I suppose, students are often worried about their pre-exam result. So they're worried about that because maybe they're hoping, they've always been good at maths. They're hoping to do something with maths in college, but they might have got 40 or 50% in the pre. And the reason just is, it's one of these structural issues that the maths course is unbelievably long. All the pre's are on end of January, start of February, so maths has to be on then. It just doesn't suit to be on for maths, right? So like economics is my other subject, no problem. Economics is fine to be on at that stage, but for maths, they're just not ready. They're not ready, they don't have enough covered, they haven't enough problem solving done. So they can get this really bad result in their pre, and then all of a sudden they're under pressure. So that, I suppose, just when they understand that at least, that again, the average result from their school exams throughout the country might be something like 45%. The average result in the Leaving Cert is closer to 70%. So everyone's going to be moving upwards.
Exactly.
So once they know that, at least then, that hopefully you're...
settle the nerves slightly, absolutely.
And then we do our free pre here, right? So that's been going on now almost 10 years. We used to do it face-to-face here in Bandit, and people used to come from all over, but now we do it online. And the idea of that is we do that in the month of April, and it's not just for maths, but maths is the one that's up first. And again, what people find, now, the student who go from 40 to 70, right, 70 in the real exam, they'll probably get, high 50s, low 60s in our exam, because they're more ready for it. We show them how to correct their own exam, show them how the marking scheme works, through all these videos for it. And that has a very positive effect on students. They can see the incline beginning. Absolutely. So it's like a midway point, I suppose, in your grade increase. That's exactly what it is, right? Because it's halfway from their school pre to the exam. That's what it is. And you're saying, okay, you could well make the same jump again or close to it to the real exam. And then I suppose just generally for maths students, and it could be higher level, ordinary level, Leaving Cert, junior cycle, how you get better at maths is you practice maths. And as you get close to the exams, it's the exam paper stuff, And the key advice, of course, you want to give students is don't leave it too late. Just get working early, And then if that time passes, I suppose, as it does for some kids, as we all remember, it's okay. It's to just try to have the philosophy that, one, you're just going to go in and do the best you can. You can't determine the outcome. Everyone would like to do well, but But you control what you can control. You prepare the best you can. But like last year's Leaving Cert Paper 1 is a case in point.
Yeah.
The whole, 6 years walk in as an exam that's very unusual. And then you have to try and arm the students kind of mentally with the idea, the philosophy, you're going to do what you know. You know? So if you don't know what to do, you'll do what you know. You just get something down. To be fair, again, students wouldn't always fully understand this, but the marking scheme is in their favour.
Yeah.
The correctors are trying
to find those marks in their workings. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so if they do in the exam, if they go in and give it a good shot, it's very rare to find a student who's actually very disappointed with their actual result at the end in maths,
I suppose so let's say you push through all those nerves, you get through all that prep, and you're sitting at the table and you open up the maths paper 1. So what way would you advise someone? Would you advise read through the whole thing, or do you think that might send you to a spiral? What do you think? What's the...
I'm going to give you my definite advice, and this is what I say, and not everyone agrees with this, but I think the proof of it was last year, right? I said, do not read through the full maths exam. And economics is my other subject. I'd say the same in economics. Basically what I say is find a short question that you can see, A, B, and C. I know what that is, I know what that is, I know what that is, and do it. It doesn't even matter fully if you get it right. It's just, you know what to do and you do it. That's going to take you, if in terms of the timing of the exam, if it's a 30-mark question, it takes you up to 15 minutes, because if it's in maths, right, it's like
2 marks for a minute.
Exactly that. 300 marks in total, 150 minutes. So if they do one of those, then they find another short question they can do. They do that. Now all of a sudden you're close to half an hour into the exam, and that initial adrenaline has passed through the system. That's my advice always. Don't try and look at the whole thing, because there's just too much information to take in. So a lot of students who you did hear coming out afterwards, and the stories were on the radio and the newspapers, what they were saying was they read through the whole exam and they didn't recognise anything. But in reality, what happened at that stage, they were overloaded. They were panicked.
One or two probably bad questions in the mix of 10 good ones are enough to probably send you in that spiral. And then you lose confidence and you're fighting a losing battle then, I suppose.
Exactly. And was one of the only students last year who was very happy with paper 1. What that student did, because they emailed me, it was on the 21-day challenge, he emailed me and said, I don't know what the fuss was about. I thought it was grand. He said, I just did questions 1 to 5 and then 7, 8, 9, right? And then time was up, and so that was it. What happened to that student was it just happened that question 6 and question 10 were really hard. They were the hardest, right? He didn't even look at them. So he didn't even know that those real stinkers were there. So he did 1 to 5. They were tough enough, but they were the easier ones were in there, and he did 7, 8, 9. They were the long questions, and they were the easier ones, and 10 was just appalling. So it worked out for him that way. He didn't even look at them, right? Now that wouldn't always work either, because if question 1 and 7 were the hardest, that wouldn't work out great.
Absolutely.
But the key to it was just start. Start with something you know and go from there. And that does help inside the exam, and I would recommend that to all students again this year.
And one thing, I suppose, probably more of a personal question, but I don't know if anyone else has this. So I found sometimes reading over my workings in maths, sometimes I find I second guess myself then. The more I read it, and then I'm like, oh, wait, did I do this right? I could have been confident at it. What would you say then? Would you say just trust your instinct, or would you say maybe if you're second guessing it, reread it and try again? Or?
Well, one thing that students aren't always familiar with is you can do it again, right? And so say, just to give the extreme example, if you did a question 10 times, one after another, the examiner must correct all 10, mark them, put their mark next to it, and then you get the best out of those 10, right? So there's no problem doing a question again, right? Just to have it at its most extreme form, right? Obviously, I wouldn't recommend anyone to do that in the exam, right? But just so people know. So there's no problem doing a question twice if you have the time. However, my general philosophy in general is you do the question and you move on. Because the key, most important thing is to get 5 short questions done and 3 long questions in maths, and then whatever the requirement is in any other subject. Because you do see some students who spend too long on one thing and don't get the paper finished. And unfortunately, that's a killer.
And would you see many students that would try do the other long questions to try see if their best marks get picked up or something.
Yeah, and you see some students can, and like, you know, maths particularly is one of those ones where you can have people who are just pure natural talents at it.
Yeah.
And they'll have them all done. They'll have time to spare. You know? So, you know, they'd say, well, you know, why would you advise me not to do that? But for most students, what I advise is do the 5 short questions, your 3 long questions, and if you have time, you can do 1 extra short question. I very rarely find an occasion where someone does a 4th long question, which was their least favourite when they looked at them, and that is better than the other ones. I think they'd be better off spending the time
just fixing up what they have done.
Exactly, going back through, verifying your answers, double checking, things like that, John.
And I suppose then another quick question. So if a student, let's say, is in the exam and they find themselves, they've given time into this like long question, but then sometimes it's not what you thought it was once you get into the calculations, what would you say then? Would you say scrap it and move on? Would you say like don't panic and to redo it?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one, and again, it does happen every year because the long questions, there can be like there could be 5 or 6 different parts to it, and they can also, you know, one part might be just say differentiation and another part might be logs, and they're all related to the same theme. The question might be the same, like fish in a lake or something like that, right? But then they might be able to do the differentiation but not the logs. So if you hit that barrier, you know, it has to be kind of judged. You know, one thing that students sometimes, again, this is where the practice of problem solving is so important. Sometimes you might be able to get part C right.
Yeah.
But you can still continue on to part D.
Okay.
But it takes a while for students to actually get that mentality because they get the idea. They're like, if I can't do part C, well, I'm done with the question. You know? But oftentimes they give you the answer, show that X is equal to, and then you're using that in the next part. So that's one part, okay? But let's say you're in the situation where you're completely flummoxed now. Well, in that scenario, you're probably going to have enough time to try the other one. And that probably is the thing to do there. Call it there and just say, move on. Exactly. Well, no, that's fantastic, obviously, if any students out there have any questions, leave them in the comments and we can sit down with Eoghan again and talk them through before the exam. Or sign up to his 21-day maths challenge and you'll be able to ask questions on any of the classes. But anyway, for now, thanks very much for joining. And if you're listening on Spotify, please head over to our YouTube channel and we'll have all the relevant links in the captions below. So thanks a million and thanks Eoghan again. You did. See you next time.